Hey everyone, welcome to Hands and Heels Racing. I'm Luke here, so I'm the poster of the page. This is our first video I've done. Pretty much the focus of the Hands and Heels Racing is we're going to review metropolitan meets. So every Sunday we'll be looking at the Melbourne and Sydney races. We'll have a look at, obviously when Brisbane Carnival happens, we'll sort of expand out a bit, but it's mainly Sydney and Melbourne. We'll review, we'll do previews going into the big meets. And we'll have sort of an open race day page where punters can vent, we can talk, look at, talk about biases, things like that. So just an interactive page designed to help the average person, and hopefully we can give you some good insight. Futures as well, I like to talk about futures. I do like a futures bet myself. I will state a couple within the Caulfield card that did pay dividends for me. So yeah, this is the first video we've done, so we'll get stuck into the Caulfield review. So Caulfield Guineas Day yesterday, we'll run through all the races, and then I'll do a second video which will be the Randwick review of the Everest and the races on the card there. So we'll get straight into it. First race was the Debutante Stakes for the 2-year-olds. I did have a small bet on Caulfield, the winner. Big thing to note is just the Hayes and Dabenig yard with 2-year-olds. They had Medina last year, they had Nomathaj win last week up the straight, and then they had Caulfield yesterday. So they have a habit of turning out these good 2-year-olds. I don't know if it's their training or if they're just getting good crops coming through, but almost when you're looking at these 2-year-old races, if you're going to have a bet, we're not looking at form because they're unraced. So you want to have a look at the breeding, and then you want to look at the stable. So, if they're from that Hayes and Dabenig yard, that's a big advantage, and you can mark them a lot shorter just because they're in that yard. Okay, so Caulfield was a good win. Had all the splits, and the race was run to suit. Sacred Sword ran really well on debut out of the McAvoy yard. He's another trainer who can turn out a good 2-year-old. The one I really want to follow is Encryption, because Godolphin's a yard as well that have a good record training juveniles, 2- and 3-year-olds. But from the breeding perspective, the dam is Guelph. Some of you remember Guelph. She was a very good 2-year-old filly and a 3-year-old filly. She won the Flight Stakes. I think she won the Sire's Produce as a 2-year-old too, and she might have even won the 1,000 Guineas. So she was a multiple Group 1 winner, but she was very handy. Lonhro obviously won mile races as well. So the fact that both the Sire and Dam won mile Group 1s says to me that Encryption's going to be a bit better over further. He hit the line well. Definitely the one I want to follow out of the race going forward is Encryption. We'll go down to race 2. We'll bring up the results there. Invincible Star was plunged $18 into $6. Huge plunge. Showed ability on debut in Cup Week last year in the spring. Hasn't raced much since, has been a bit poor since, but obviously has ability. She's a very nice looking horse, and just jumped out and got straight to the lead and kicked, and it was a very good performance. Very good performance, won by 4 lengths. Don't want to follow anything behind it. Not sure what to make what Jorda is, because Jorda obviously has some type of ability, because she was third to Minari first up this preparation, and that's good form. Maybe she's a freshie, maybe she only runs well fresh. She is on the smaller side. I think she needs to go for a spell, and maybe she'll run well first up next preparation, but not following anything out of the race. I think it's a second tier fillies race, but I think the winner's quite smart, as we saw, winning 4 lengths. Following her going forward, I think she's obviously got ability, but I've heard the target is the Coolmore. And I'm probably going to be against her in the Coolmore at this stage, because she is $9. We're not getting a huge price, and there's a lot of angles you can take with the Coolmore. As you'll hear in the Randwick video review, Tulip is going there, and Tulip's coming off a 2.6 length 5th in the $10 million Everest, and that's one angle you can take. Hootson will be going there from the Everest as well. Minari is supposed to be coming down from Sydney, freshened back up at 1200. Viridine, the new horse on the scene in Sydney. Jukebox is professional, and he's only had the 1 loss to Catchy, which is very good form. So there's a lot of different angles, a lot of good horses in the Coolmore, and it looks an open race. And out of all of those, I'll probably have all of those I mentioned above Invincible Star. So while she was impressive yesterday, I'm going to be against her in a race like the Coolmore because of the quality that I mentioned. We'll go to race 3, the mares race, the Group 3 mares race. Cool Passion, good win, all credit, 6-year-old mare. Padrina was probably the one I want to follow going forward because she stormed into second place from off the pace. She was only first up, and she's got a good 1400 metre record, so probably something you want to follow in a similar race next start at 1400. Princess of Queens has been up and running, rock hard fit. She was my tip because I thought she was going forward, and she has the fitness edge, and she's got form around Merriest, who placed last week at Flemington. She had Oregon's Day form and Swampland form too, so she ran well, but it was disappointing that she didn't go forward because they advised her to be on pace, and she went back to bloody last. But she ran well regardless, $3 a place, so no real complaints. Miss Gunpowder's probably a pass mark. I thought the map was a problem for her from barrier 10, but she found a good spot. Dunn gave her a good ride. She's only beaten 0.7 lengths, so she'll probably improve second up. But I thought she had every chance, and I thought Princess of Queens, who is a solid mare, and Padrina ran straight past her. So she's a pass mark, but definitely I'll be on Padrina next time they meet, if they meet. Desert Lashes, probably, I was against her because she had Adelaide form, and Adelaide form isn't terrible sometimes, but I'm always happy to take them on against some of these Melbourne mares. She was beaten a fair bit, and Legless Verve was a disappointing one. She started favourite, SP'd about 350. My thing with Legless Verve is I think she's a freshie. All her fresh runs have been quite good. She has won second up, but she's been a rocks and diamonds kind of horse, and was very impressive first up behind Savannah Amore and Ravi. Flew home, SP'd favourite. I can see why people were interested in her, but I just had the suspicion that she was starting too short for an inconsistent horse who potentially is a freshie. That was my take on the race, and she ran accordingly, but I think she has pulled up lame, so I don't want to take too much credit for my prediction that she wouldn't run well because she was injured. So we'll move on. The one to follow out of that race, recapping, is Padrina. Princess of Queens can run well at each way odds again next start in a similar race, I think. So we'll go to race 4, the Herbert Power. Just want to say the Williams runners were very disappointing. I mean, I was on Foundry, who won the Metrop, the Group 1 Metrop to start before, and they've finished tailed off out the back. So the stable can do funny things, and I don't want to make any accusations or anything there, but he had 2 horses that were in the market, and they were off the bit early and finished tailed off at the back. So I don't know what went on. I haven't read that either of them were lame, so I don't know why they finished so far back. But I'll be against both of those horses going forward. You can forgive Almanda because Almanda's ran very well this prep, first and second up. He was flat third up, but he wasn't tailed off out the back. He was a couple of lengths off Emily Starr. These two were 30 lengths away, and I just can't back something that was beaten 30 lengths next start. Gaelic Chieftain, I thought probably it was his race essentially because he comes here third up, lightweight. He's been hitting the line well, so it was. I thought it was his race and his chance to win. He ran okay. Wall of Fire was first up in Australia, gave Gaelic Chieftain 5 kilos, so he can be followed into a Melbourne Cup. I'm not saying I'm going to back him in the Melbourne Cup, but I think he's in with a chance. Especially the fact that it's an advantage to have a run here in Australia. There are horses who have come straight off the plane, first up into the Melbourne Cup and ran well. We saw Heartbreak City come second last year, first up in Australia. We've seen Red Cadeau lose by a whisker, first up in Australia. But all the winners have had runs, like Protectionist ran in this race first up when he won the Melbourne Cup and then went straight to the Melbourne Cup. So he was second up in Australia winning the Melbourne Cup. We've seen our Mandan spend time in Australia as an overseas horse before winning the Melbourne Cup. So it's an advantage to have the lead-up run because they've handled the Australian conditions. So that's in his favour going to the Melbourne Cup. Not sure where he sits in the pecking order yet. I'll obviously do a lot more videos before the Melbourne Cup, and you'll hear more of my opinions about that race as we get closer to it. So, Lord Fandango, he looks, he was suited up to 2400 and he ran well. I've heard he's gone to a Caulfield Cup on the week back up. I don't give him much of a chance there because I think he's stepping up into a very hard race. He's running into horses like Humidor, Bonneville, Jon Snow, Jonas Vermeer, which we'll talk about later. So I think he's stepping up in class, and I think he'll be outclassed in the Caulfield Cup. Boom Time ran, honestly, it's probably as good as he's got. He's been up a while. Harlow Gold, if you hadn't already sacked her, you can sack her now. I sacked her quite a while ago. I backed her in the binary in the autumn, and I thought she had every chance there. It was a bit disappointing, and then she was disappointing in the Oaks, and I thought this thing, it's just never winning. We're making excuses for it every start. I was against it. So we'll move on to the next race. We'll go to the Weekend Hustler. It was a pretty poor edition, to be honest. A lot of horses were coming off poor runs. I was on Dibiani and Mongolian Wolf. Mongolian Wolf couldn't keep up, and was beaten a long way. Dibiani did what Dibiani does, just places. He never wins. He's had 30-something starts now for 2 wins. But he was a great placement. He was $5.50 to place. He's come second to Winks before. He's been placed around Lara Main and he's weight for age horses, and he comes into a pretty weak edition of the Hustler Stakes. So I was happy to back him to place, and he ran pretty well. Now, do you follow him going forward? Don't back him to win, but if he finds a similar race again and he's forgotten about by the market because he's a non-winner, you can back him to place. Religify was the one down from Sydney, and it was the obvious pick. A lot of punters were on. He ticked boxes because he's on pace, he had good form, and you could pretty much put a pen through a lot of these. He found one better. He found Fast and Rocking better, who you just can't catch. So, do you follow Fast and Rocking going forward? He's been running well this time in. 7-year-old gelding. He's still got a bit of life left in his legs. He's shown that his first 2 runs is prep, but good luck following him because you can't catch him. He doesn't win out of turn, but he's running well. So out of this race, I wouldn't really follow anything. I'd be happy to back Dibiani to run a place in a similar race again. Oregon's Day ran better than last start, but I'm not sure where she is at the moment. Couldn't back her in a mire against horses like Fox Play, the way she's running at the moment. Duke of Brunswick looks cooked. Needs to go for a spell. And that's it for this race, not much to talk about. Alright, we'll get to the good races. We go to the 1,000 Guineas, and I had a fat result here with Aloysia winning at 18s. I had a futures ticket at 18s, and I'm on at $29 for the Oaks, and she's in at $3. So I'm really excited about that ticket. I'm obviously a big fan of this filly now. She had the dream one, so I will concede she saved ground on the rail. Everything worked out perfect. But the thing was, this wasn't her grand final. She was only second up, and she beat some good fillies like Scholes and Elise, and she'll only improve going forward. So you can absolutely follow her going to the Oaks because she's she's out of Azamore, who's a 2,400 metre Group 1 winner. So she'll only get better as the distances go further, and a lot of these fillies will not get better as the distances go further. So she'll only get harder to beat, I think. But $3 for the Oaks now, pretty short. I mean, there's still a bit of water to go under the bridge between now and the Oaks, so don't know if you want to take $3 with a few variables still to happen. Scholes, look, you got to love this filly too. She tries the guts out. She's never finished worse than second. Given every chance, great ride by Zara. Just beaten by a better one on the day with a softer run. Elise obviously was not as good as she was in the Flight Stakes in Sydney, but she's had a very good preparation. She's going for a spell now, and post-race veterinary showed that she did have a throat condition. So obviously something, some type of virus there, which probably explains her flat performance. She wasn't horrible. She's still come third in a Group 1, but she certainly wasn't as electric as she was in Sydney. I think the Elise that won the Flight Stakes would have won the 1,000 Guineas today. She'll go for a spell. She's a good horse. Not much to say about the rest. Booker pulled up lame, beaten 10 lengths. She's better than that. She's had a good preparation. I'm sure she'll go for a spell. Probably doesn't get a mile. She's a handy sprinter. Sprinting filly. Leather and Lace go for a spell now, and I'm sure Pure Scott was pretty disappointing. She was in the market for the Oaks, but beaten 10 lengths, pretty disappointing. So definitely big follow on Aloysia. The others will probably go for a spell or can't beat Aloysia this prep, I would think. But I like Scholes as a horse. I think she's a good horse, so I'm happy to back her going forward. She might go to a Maya Classic, actually, I read today. They're going to decide whether she'll spell or whether she'll go to the Maya. But I think she's probably outmatched, when you're comparing her to a Fox Play or something like that in the Maya. The Caulfield Stakes, and a bit of a bad result for me. I was on Bonneville. Galo Chop was plunged back then to 550. It was probably speed mappers or stable money. He was always going to be on pace, and he peaked. He's now a dual Group 1 2,000 metre winner in Australia. So he's a good horse. He's been running well this preparation. Good honest win, and I think he'll probably go to the Cox Plate next, and I think he's a great chance to run a place behind Winks. The second horse, Johannes Vermeer, started long odds, first run in Australia. He was great. He made a lot of ground from the back. He only just missed, and the plan for him has always been to Caulfield Cup. So he'll back up, go on the 1 week back up for more reports, and he'll run the Caulfield Cup, and he'll drop 4.5 kilos. And he's performed very well on the backup before. He's had 2 backups in his career, and he's performed very well, winning a race and coming third, I think, in a Group 1. So he's going to be hard to beat in the Caulfield Cup, and I've actually backed him at $7 today because I have Bonneville at 11, Harlem at 41. So I've got a bit of an edge on the market there with some overs. I could afford to back him and potentially another one, and I might back Emily Starr. So he'll be hard to beat. I'm a bit worried about backing Nick Williams' horses all in for the Caulfield Cup, but it's only a week away, so he should be there next week. He was the eye catcher of the race. Jon Snow, he's a likeable horse too because he tries his guts out. He's on pace. He'll go to the Caulfield Cup on the week back up as well. He'll run well. I think he'll find a couple better, but I think he's probably a lock to run top 6 because he doesn't run poorly. Single Gaze tried her little guts out as well, but that's as good as she's got. She's a rung below these top tier horses, but she ran well. Inference is, people can say he's hitting the line well, he's going to peak on Caulfield Cup, but at the end of the day, he won that Randwick Guineas on a heavy 10 in the autumn, and since then, all his runs have been the same. He's been the unlucky horse every race. He's running on well, but for me, he's the type of horse you can drop back in grade and he'll still run on well for second or third. I just don't think, a bit like Suchet, who I'll touch on in the Randwick review, they're running on well, but I don't think they're looking likely like they're going to win. I couldn't back him. Bonneville, she was poor. She wasn't suited going back to second last. And apparently she's pulled up lame, but she's okay this morning. But that has to be an issue going forward to the Caulfield Cup. She's only got a week to turn it around and get herself right. She'll drop weight. She'll get the services of McAvoy. She's still a good chance. I'm not chucking my ticket in the bin. But I think you've got to be careful with what price you take Bonneville, because she had an injury concern and she's 4.2 lengths behind Galo Choppy. So she's disappointing, but I think she's got excuses. She ran into dead ends. She's obviously a good horse, but I think she'll drift out from current quote for the Caulfield Cup. She could start up around the 8s or 9s potentially. Riven Light, I heard, has pulled up injured, quite serious injury, and will spell. Obviously needs medical attention. Abby Marie, Murden said he was happy with her hitting the line. I think she ran okay, but I think she's outclassed when it comes to a Caulfield Cup as well, which is where she's going next. Taj Mahal beaten a long way, Calderon beaten a long way, so not following them, even though it was their first start in Australia. So lots happening in that race. Lots going to the Caulfield Cup. On a Caulfield Cup perspective, Johannes Vermeer, obviously the best run in terms of a Caulfield Cup. Jon Snow will run well in the Caulfield Cup, and Bonneville, I thought she was looking like a moral for the race. Comes back to the pack a bit, but I wouldn't sack her. She had excuses. Caulfield Guineas. Mighty Boss had the perfect run. Michael Walker, good ride. Saved ground. Didn't go around a runner. Still ran well. Still had to win the race. But look, if he gets the run Kementari gets, he doesn't win. He's not in the finish. And he started $101. So huge upset there. Kementari, he's talented, and I was on Kementari. I mean, with 300 to go, I thought he was going to win by 3 lengths. But it was only his 5th start, and the horse was very green. He wouldn't run straight. He was looking up, and he was a sitting shot for something to swamp him. And of course, the fresh horse who saved ground on the rails had more in the tank with 100 to go, and Mighty Boss beat him. But Kementari, definitely a handy colt, and I'm going to follow him in the autumn. I think he'll probably go for a spell now, and he'll come back a good horse in the autumn. Catchy ran well. I mean, she had a dream run as well. I don't think she runs a mile. She seemed to peak on her run. She's a good filly, but I don't think she's dominant. Like, if you put her in the 1,000 Guineas, I don't think she would have won that race, because I think she would have peaked on her run, and I think she probably runs 3rd, even potentially 4th. I think the first 3 home in the 1,000 Guineas ran very well. She's a good filly, catchy. I don't think there's enough time for her to freshen back to a Coolmore. Maybe they will do it, but I don't think it'll be right on the horse to freshen her and run her in the Coolmore. She should probably go for a spell. And she's a good horse, but I think she'll probably start unders again next start because she's seen as a dominant sprinting filly. And I don't think she's maybe half a length better than some of the others, but all the variables in racing, you can turn the tables on a half length loss pretty comfortably. Royal Symphony, he was unlucky, but I don't know how strong he was, once he got clear galloping room. He obviously hit the line quite well, but I don't know if he would have won the race even with the clear run. Same thing as Catcher, he was seen as a dominant colt. I don't think he is that dominant. I think he's a good colt, but not sure where they go with him now. If he goes to a Moonee Valley Vase, I'd back Aloisi to beat him in the Vase if they go. Let's just say they end up in the same race. I'm not sure what they do with him. Good horse, but I think he'll probably be like Catcher. He'll probably start unders at his next couple. Parast ran okay. Lavendi and Salsamore were eye catchers out wide. From a Derby perspective, Salsamore was probably a better run. I think Lavendi was a better run, but I think Salsamore's pedigree says he's more likely to run out the distance of the Derby. I don't think Lavendi will run out the Derby distance because he's out of Piero. And there's not much else to say. Showtime was disappointing. And Gold Standard was horrible. Obviously, I'm not sure if there was a medical issue there. He'll go for a spell, but he's had a pretty good prep. That's about it. So Kementari, the one to follow for me, most upside, next preparation though. And Salsamore was probably the best Derby trial. Two-rack handicap, and this is a messy race. I wouldn't be too critical of horses that ran poorly, and I wouldn't get too carried away with horses that ran well. It was a messy race, true handicap where anything could have won. The winner ran very well. I'll say that about the race. He was wide, he carried top weight, and he won pretty comfortably in the end. So Tosin Starter will probably go to the Cox Plate and verse Winks as well. And he and Galo Chop probably very good place chances off the top of my head. So he has always had ability, and I think he ran up to his ability this race. Well-deserved Group 1 victory. Sovereign Nation hit the line well. Petrology, similar run. Down in the weights, running places at big prices. Mask of Time ran a place at big price. Seabirds returned to form. So, if you're looking at the horse that come 5th, SP 81, the horse that come 4th, SP 91, and the horse that come 3rd, SP 100 to 1. That's just pretty ridiculous. And that's why you want to tread carefully with the form. And the horse that comes 2nd, SP 21. So, rough results. Tom Melbourne, bit disappointing. Egg Tart, flat. I thought she deserved, entitled to run better. Oliver agreed, said the same thing. Oh My Sword wasn't horrible through the line, but I've lost too much coin on her. I backed her again here. I've got to bring myself. I'm just going to step away. It's going to hurt me when she comes out and wins a good race one day, but she can win without me. Mr. Sneaky, first time at a mile, maybe doesn't run it. Snitson was poor, but I don't think he appreciated the cluttered up nature. He got stuck between horses. He's a big striding galloper. I think he needed room. So forgive a lot of these and tread with caution a lot that ran well. Except Toast and Stardom, who, I'd be happy to follow into a Cox Plate to run well. Last race, Scalacci Stakes. Super Cash. Just flies fresh. It was a good bet, really. I backed her just off her first up form. Her best runs are good. She beat Chautauqua Fresh last time in. So she's now had 5 first up runs for 4 wins and a second. That's really good fresh stats. Great ride by Caitlin Mallion. Sat her behind the pace. Gave her every chance. It was too strong. Illustrious Lad fought on well. He started $11, so I had a suspicion he might run well. I didn't get on. He was headed by Super Cash, but he kicked back and only beaten 0.1 of a length. So I'd be happy to back him next start because he's not very fashionable. He's from an unfashionable stable, and I think the market can. They're not going to figure about his run. He's not going to be a long odds, but I think he can be each way odds again. I think he can run a good race in a similar type of race. Rock Magic, he's loomed up twice now. Seemed to peak on his run last 2. I'm not sure if he doesn't want to win. But he ran well. He opened at like $8 in markets, and I had him in a multi to place. Multi didn't win, so I didn't get paid out. But he wasn't beaten very far. Not sure what to make of him going forward. He might run a similar, get back and run on for third again. Hellbent is the one I'm wary, I'm curious to back. He's a bit of a gunner, he's a bit of a non-winner, he's been a hype horse, and I've been against him. But his SP prices are longer this preparation because I think punters are sick of him. The hype has sort of died off about him. But he's doing something similar to what he did last preparation. He got better with all of his runs last prep. He was third up yesterday. He was less than a length off them, and he was the furthest one back. He hit the line very well. I'd be keen to back him around a $8-9 quote in a similar race next start. I think he'll improve again, and I think he's ticking along fine, improving with racing. And Shidell, she was only beat 1.2 lengths. She ran well in the Moya as well, but I've been against her. I backed her first up this prep. I was disappointed with her run then. I thought she had conditions to run well. I wouldn't say she's completely cooked. Maybe she's half cooked. But she isn't quite the same horse that won the Oakley Plate last year. She's not running terribly, so they might not retire her, but I'm happy for her to run against me going forward. I'm just not going to back her because I don't think she's the same mare as she once was. She's still running creditably in hard races, but not what she once was. Lankan Rupee is now retired. Great thing for the horse. I think he should have been retired earlier. He's got nothing to prove. I know he's a gelding and there's not much use of him being retired, but I think it's the right thing for the horse. First Among Equals was pretty plain. Market suggested he couldn't win. It was about $7 out to 16, and that's it to say about the race really. So just recapping, horses to follow. Encryption from race 1, very keen to follow him next start. Race 2, Invincible Star, going forward. I'm going to be against her in the Coolmore though. So if her next race is the Coolmore, I'm probably going to be against. But she's a pretty handy filly. Race 3, Padrina's the one out of the race that you want to follow going forward. Obviously, when I say follow going forward, it depends on class of race. If Padrina runs in a Meyer versus Foxplay and Co., she's probably not up to them. If she runs in a similar class of race against similar horses, I think she'll beat them. I think she'll improve second up out to 1400. Princess of Queens I could back in a similar race again, but she hasn't got any upside. I think how she's running is what she's got. But if they continue to put up $9, $10 and $3 odds for her to place, she's probably not a bad each way bet. Miss Gunpowder, pass mark, neither for or against going forward. We'll just see where she ends up. Herbert Power Stakes, Lord Fandango ran well. His 2400 metre form on a dry track is good, so you can expect him to perform well at that track in those circumstances. But I'm going to be against him in the Caulfield Cup. I think he's outclassed. Wall of Fire has a Melbourne Cup chance. I'm not sure where he sits in the pecking order of who I'd select at the moment. Gaelic Chieftain probably needs a slight drop in grade. Boom Time has got little upside this prep. It's as good as he's got, and Harlow Gold can be sacked for life. Weekend Hustler Stakes, not following anything out of the race. I'd be happy to back Dibiani at long odds to place again in a similar race. Everything else I'm probably going to be against. I'm not a big fan of the race. Religion Fire's not a bad horse, but he was beaten by Fast and Rocking at the end of the day, and I'm not too sure what to make of that. 1,000 Guineas, Aloysia, follow. Will only get better with more distance, while some of the other fillies can't run those distances out. So she'll just get harder and harder to beat. I like Scholes. Not sure. I don't think she can win a Maya, but she's a tough. She's my second favourite horse in the race. Elise is super talented, but going for a spell, so her prep's done. And anything outside the top 3 are no good to follow. Booker's a decent sprinter, but she'll probably go for a spell. Caulfield Stakes, Galo Chop, expected to hold his form, couldn't run a place in the Cox Plate. Johannes Vermeer, you can back him for the Caulfield Cup. I think he'll run very well in the week back up to 2400. John Snow, place chance for Caulfield Cup. You're probably getting around the right price, $13, $14 for him. Single Gauge, probably little upside. If she drops in grade, she'll be hard to beat. If she stays in this class of race, she's probably outclassed. Inference, I'm going to be against Inference. I just think he's one of those horses, those flashing light horses that runs on well. Not sure he wants to win races. Bonneville, happy to forgive, but tread with caution. Be careful what price you take. I don't think she deserves to be $5. You need to be compensated for her poor run or her injury cloud. Nothing else to say. Hartnell, I'm sacking as well. I thought he had a good run behind the speed. Maybe he's trained off, but I think there are signs that he isn't the same horse that won the Turnbull Stakes last year. Not signs, he hasn't reproduced that form again. So, not sure where they go with Hutton or what they do. I'm going to be against him if he has another run this preparation because he's coming off quite a poor one here. Caulfield Guineas. Kementari is the one I want to follow going forward. He'll probably go for a spell. He's an immature horse but has ability. Next preparation, I expect him to get better. Catchy, Royal Symphony, decent horses. Not really against, not the 4 nor against. Maybe slightly against because I think they'll start unders next 1 or 2 starts. It obviously depends how they perform. Lavendi, I don't think will run the Derby. It's my opinion there, even though he ran well. Salsamore can run an okay Derby race, but I'm still leaning towards my 2 picks in Main Stage and Ace High for the Derby. Race 9. So, Toast and Stardom's the best horse in the race. You can follow him going forward. Forgive the runners that didn't run that well and be careful with the runners that did run well. Not sure how the form's going to stack out. I reckon there'll be a lot of inconsistencies like horses turning tables. Just a messy race. Race 10, Super Cash. She probably ran her best race. Which she won't get any better this preparation because her best runs have been fresh. So the one I want to follow going forward is probably Illustrious Lad, who I think might be a bit forgotten next start. We can get each way odds. Rock Magic, maybe if you get each way odds again, and I think Hellbeat can run well as well. So 2nd, 3rd and 4th are going to run well next start. Super Cash, I think I've got my money off her, not sure I'll back her again this prep. And Shidell I'm going to oppose, because I don't think she's the same mare she once was. So that's it, guys. Hope you gained a good amount of information from our review. I'll stick around. I'm going to do the Randwick preview next. Review, sorry. So I hope that helps a few people, and we'll be doing another preview going into Caulfield Cup Day next Saturday. So you'll hear me in the Randwick video next. Cheers, guys.